Pointless, he calls it, Sophie muttered, low enough that Mr. Power Lunch couldn't hear. Another waste of an afternoon. But here's the thing, and he'd never guess. She's desperate. This isn't about finding Mr. Right. It's about keeping the lights on at her after-school program. A program he could save with a snap of his manicured fingers. He thinks she's just a sweet school teacher killing time? Wrong. She's got a secret weapon, her kids, and a quiet ferocity that could melt his icy heart. What he doesn't know? Her kindness will unravel his carefully constructed world, one unruly second grader at a time. At 39, Nathan was the CEO of Pierce Capital Management, a position that had consumed his life for the past decade. His days were filled with board meetings and investor calls, his evenings with business dinners and networking events. Romance had become another item on his to-do list, something to be scheduled and optimized like everything else in his carefully controlled life. This blind date was the last favor he would do for his well-meaning assistant, who kept insisting that Nathan needed someone in his life beyond quarterly earnings reports. After 3 disastrous setups in the past year, Nathan had made it clear this was the final attempt. If today didn't work out, he was done with dating entirely. Through the restaurant's glass doors, Nathan saw a woman approaching. She wore a simple beige dress and carried a worn leather bag. Her brown hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked nothing like the polished executives and socialites his assistant usually paired him with, and Nathan felt his expectations dropping even further. Sophie Martinez paused at the entrance, taking a deep breath before walking into the elegant restaurant. At 32, she was an elementary school teacher who had agreed to this blind date only because her college roommate had begged her, claiming that Nathan was actually a good man beneath his intimidating professional exterior. Sophie had her doubts. In her experience, wealthy executives wanted someone who fit their lifestyle like an accessory, not someone who spent her days with second graders and came home with paint on her clothes and construction paper in her bag. Nathan Pierce, Sophie asked as she approached his table, her voice carrying a directness that immediately distinguished her from the women who usually fawned over his status. Sophie Martinez. Nathan stood, shaking her hand with the same formal courtesy he brought to business meetings. Please sit. As Sophie settled into her chair, she noticed Nathan's expensive watch, his perfectly styled hair, and the way he sat with the posture of someone always ready for a boardroom. Everything about him screamed controlled, calculated, and completely incompatible with her world. I'll be honest, Sophie said after they had ordered. I almost didn't come today. I teach second grade. I live in a rent-controlled apartment, and my idea of the exciting Friday night is grading papers while watching cooking shows. I'm probably not what you're looking for. Nathan appreciated her directness, even as it confirmed his assumptions. And I'm probably exactly what you're expecting. A workaholic CEO who checks his phone during dinner and measures relationships in terms of efficiency and compatibility metrics. So we agree this is pointless? Sophie asked, though without hostility. Probably, Nathan admitted. Then surprising himself, he added, but we're already here, and the food is supposed to be excellent. Why not have a good meal and an honest conversation instead of pretending we're something we're not? Sophie smiled for the first time. That's the most reasonable thing I've heard anyone say about dating in years. What followed was unlike any date Nathan had experienced. Without the pressure of trying to impress each other, they talked with unusual honesty about their lives. Sophie told him about her students, the challenges of teaching in an underfunded school, and why she had chosen a career that would never make her wealthy, but filled her days with meaning. Nathan found himself talking about things he rarely discussed, how the pressure of constant success had isolated him, how he had built a company but lost touch with why he had wanted to do it in the first place, and how he couldn't remember the last time he had done something just because it brought him joy. Why did you start your company? Sophie asked, genuinely curious. My father lost everything in the 2008 financial crisis because his investment advisor put him in products he didn't understand. I wanted to build a firm that actually educated clients and acted in their best interests. Nathan paused. Somewhere along the way, it became about market share and profits instead of helping people. Sophie studied his face. That's the difference between a job and a calling. A job is about what you do. A calling is about why you do it. Sounds like you lost your why. The simple observation cut deeper than Nathan expected. What's your why? I had a teacher in third grade who made me feel like I mattered when my home life was falling apart. She didn't just teach me reading and math. She taught me that I was worth something. That's what I try to do for my students. As their conversation continued, Nathan found himself genuinely engaged in a way he hadn't been in years. Sophie wasn't trying to fit into his world or impress him with knowledge of finance. She challenged his assumptions, asked questions that made him think, and seemed completely unbothered by his wealth or status. "Can I ask you something?" Sophie said over dessert. "Why did you agree to this blind date if you're so burned out on dating?" Nathan considered the question honestly. "Because my assistant is worried about me. She says I'm becoming bitter and isolated, that I need human connection that isn't transactional." This was supposed to prove her wrong. And did it? "Actually," Nathan said slowly, "it proved her right. This is the most real conversation I've had in months, and it happened precisely because neither of us was trying to make it work." Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "I think we both showed up expecting this to fail, which paradoxically made it possible for it to succeed, at least as a conversation, if not as a romantic connection." As they prepared to leave, Nathan did something that surprised both of them. "Sophie, I know we agreed this wasn't going to be a romantic match, but would you be open to having dinner again sometime? Not as a date, but as people who appreciate each other's honesty." Sophie considered this carefully. "I'd like that, but I need you to understand something. I won't pretend to fit into your world of expensive restaurants and business galas. If we're going to be friends, it has to work in my world too." "What does that look like? Pizza and grading papers, school plays and parent-teacher conferences. Nothing fancy, nothing designed to impress, just real life." Nathan realized that real life was exactly what had been missing from his carefully curated existence. "I think that sounds perfect." Over the following months, their friendship developed in unexpected ways. Sophie invited Nathan to her classroom science fair, where he found himself genuinely fascinated by second graders explaining volcanoes. Nathan brought Sophie to a financial literacy workshop his company hosted, and her insights about education led to them developing programs for teaching kids about money. More importantly, Sophie's influence helped Nathan reconnect with his original purpose. He restructured his company's mission to emphasize client education and ethical investing, even when it meant lower profits. Sophie introduced him to her school's needs, and Nathan's foundation began funding programs that brought financial literacy to underprivileged students. They never became romantic partners, both recognizing that their different lifestyles and values made them better as friends than as a couple, but their friendship became one of the most meaningful relationships in both their lives. A year after that blind date, Nathan sat at a school cafeteria table with Sophie, both of them chaperoning a field trip to a local museum. As he helped a 7-year-old understand how compound interest worked, using jelly beans as a visual aid, Nathan realized that the date he had expected to be a disaster had actually given him back something he didn't know he had lost: a sense of purpose beyond profit and connection, beyond transaction. The cold CEO who had agreed to one last blind date had discovered that sometimes the most transformative relationships aren't romantic at all. And the teacher who had shown up expecting nothing had demonstrated that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't matching their lifestyle, but helping them remember who they wanted to be before success convinced them to be someone else. Thank you for listening to this story about finding meaningful connection in unexpected places and remembering what truly matters. If this tale reminded you that the most important relationships aren't always romantic and that friendship can be just as transformative as love, please like this video, share it with someone who values authentic connection, and subscribe for more stories celebrating relationships that don't follow conventional paths. We'd love to hear in the comments about friendships that change your perspective or times when letting go of expectations led to something better than you imagined. Remember, sometimes the best relationships are the ones that help us become the people we're meant to be, rather than the people we think we should be.